One thing I like to remind people is that nobody was born writing. You don't even have to pick up a pen. There's talk to text. There's so many different ways that you can get the words that are in here and the thoughts, the stories, the dreams, the visions, the pieces that are within to get them out. And then you see what you have because it's not scattered. In fact, it's a beautiful story of who you are, how you got here, your wisdom, and all the gifts that you have to share now with the world.
Welcome to the Awaken Magazine podcast, where influential conscious leaders come to share the real stories behind their spiritual journey and how they're helping others awaken to love. I'm your host, David Trotter, and today I'm excited to introduce you to Nicole Washburn. She's an expert writing coach, author, editor, artist, and co-founder of the Authors Collaborative. Now, in this conversation, she tells us all about how she spent 22 years teaching environmental education in Argentina, which is where she raised her 3 kids. Amazing story. She also challenges us to write every day honestly and authentically in order to really understand what's going on in our minds below that initial thought, to really get clarity on what we're thinking and feeling. She shares with us about the pros of self-publishing and how that is a very viable path for many authors who want to get the word out about their particular message. And then she shares how she helps authors find their real voice through what she calls creative magic. Now, if you enjoy conversations that go beyond the surface of spirituality, mindfulness, consciousness, you are in the right place. I want to encourage you to subscribe to the Awaken Magazine podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast. Click subscribe, leave a rating or a review. That's an easy way for you to help us spread the word about these inspiring interviews that we release each and every week. All right, let's dive in to this conversation with Nicole Washburn. Nicole, thank you so much for taking time to connect with us today. It's great to be with you.
It's so great to be with you, David. Thank you.
I want to hear all about, as a little kid, did you love books and writing, or did that come to you kind of later in life?
I've loved writing and books since as long as I could remember. Books have been my passion, and it was my parents reading to me. And then as soon as I could write, I started writing books myself, like a lot of kids, and illustrating them. So I've always been a writer. I never stopped. I wrote through school, then through university, and just kept going. So yes, books have been my passion forever.
Do you remember as a little kid, like your favorite book? Is there one that comes to mind?
Yeah, The Wizard of Oz, the whole series, not just the first book, but there's a extended series, and the illustrations in them, I think, were the biggest impact because they were very developed stories, and that was the first, full book I read, and then I read the whole series as a kid. So that was just like took me off and out into that creative realm.
I love it. It's so funny how we have different experiences with books. Like, I did not like reading, but my parents would. I guess in elementary school, you had to bring a book to school for a free reading time period. Like in this particular, you got 30 minutes or something like that. So my parents gave me the series for C.S. Lewis, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And so I think I got through the first book. And then after the second book, I started just moving my bookmark over a few pages every day, not actually reading it.
I get that. It's funny because I couldn't do that series either. It was completely unreadable to me as a child, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, even though
Yeah.
it had the very fascinating story, it had the illustrations, and yet it would seem very dense, and that just didn't do it. So I understand that, and I think it's finding the right book. And the other thing is we are all intimidated by writing and reading. Like that is a natural thing that all of us have. So it's just finding the book that sparks our interest, and then we're off and running. But until we find that as a child, we kind of feel like it's us, that we're missing something and everybody else is excited about it. And really, it's just finding the right book, I think.
Beautiful. Well, you also are, I don't want to say equally as passionate, but definitely a huge part of your life is this experience of consciousness and mindfulness and spirituality. And so I'm curious, was faith or spirituality a part of your life as you were growing up, or did that get brought in later as well?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question because I was raised without a spiritual, any sort of spiritual teaching or formal teaching from my parents. So it just left me open. And I naturally gravitated, as so many of us do, to animals, nature, trees. I definitely always felt the spiritual. Knowing what it is now, I realize I always had that. And I think a lot of us feel that in nature because to this day, that is still the same sort of energy. So I just searched with my friends growing up. I'd go to a Catholic service, or I'd try different things out, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism. I tried them out, but nothing was fitting until I found the Native American spirituality. I said, that's it. And then, as I've, grown older, I see that all of that is connected. We're all talking about the same thing. So that's was my path with it. And I do see that it's all connected to our creativity, our expression, and our connection with our consciousness, which is our connection with the divine. It's all one.
Hmm.
Happily. I'm so glad to discover that it's all one. So, what I felt as a child is the same thing that I feel now, I would say.
Hmm. At what point were you introduced to that Native American spirituality? And was that through like a book or a mentor? And how did you kind of begin to dive into that?
Well, I started in high school just exploring and reading books, definitely. Like, it's interesting. Yeah, it's through books because that's what we had back in the day. There was no other way to get it. And then when I went to University of Arizona, I started to meet people and I was studying anthropology and creative writing. So that just, like, that's where it all clicked. And then I ended up traveling. I ended up in Argentina and I ended up studying with shamans. And so it all just developed from there when I was at university.
Hmm. So you mentioned, and I have, found the exact years. 1993 is when you moved to South America, and so I'm curious, why were you motivated to move there? What was it about that location that drew you?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I've always felt that places call me. And I know that I'm not alone in that, where we start to get a little twinkle of like, ooh, I want to go explore this particular place. So I definitely felt that with South America for a while. But once I graduated with my anthropology degree, I went to the North Woods of Minnesota. I got an internship teaching environmental education. And once my internship ended, I was invited to teach environmental education in Argentina. So I said, "Where is Argentina? Let me look at, I find it on the map and figure this out." It was sort of a mystery place to me. I knew it was down there in South America.
Was
So
this
it was
through a
one of
non
those
was this through a nonprofit or a school or
it was
college
it
or
was it was from a colleague I was working with at the environmental school in Minnesota. And then I ended up going down and we started an environmental school together and we ended up getting married and raising a family together down there. So that became a huge project, but it came through the environmental education and just an invite, come on down to Argentina. And you didn't have to ask me twice. I was like, sure, let me go and try that out. I was 22 years old and ready to go and try that out. And then 22 years later is when I came back to the States. So I stayed down there that long because it was, the perfect place to be. I just love South America and I love Argentina. It's
So
really
tell me a
special.
little bit more about this environmental education. Were you teaching Argentinians or were people from other places coming to learn there? Tell me all about this. I'm completely ignorant. Educate me.
Yeah, well, yes, Argentine students, and this was back, like you said, this is in the early 90s. And back then, of course, we didn't have internet or anything like that. And so learning was different. And I basically, the schools that we worked with from Buenos Aires, they were Argentine students. The only way that the schools like the idea of their kids going out for 5 days and being in the woods and learning about nature, which all seemed like a waste of time. Right? The only way that they would permit that is because we promised that we would speak 50% of the time in English. So it was English practice. And so we just wanted to get the kids in nature to teach them about nature and really connect with their heart. That has always been our passion. So we said, okay, we'll do everything in English. So the schools were happy to send the fifth graders, very small kids. It's the first time they're leaving home. And then they're spending 5 days with us in the woods, in a school setting. They have dormitories and everything. We weren't camping in tents. But for a fifth grader, that's a huge leap. And once we had them there, writing, reading, talking in English was definitely not what the fifth grader wanted to do. And it was very intimidating. Now they're away from home, they're in a new environment, and now they have to speak English and they have to write in English. So I had to find a way to make that fun and make it not intimidating and make it a part of connecting with nature, which luckily writing actually is, because when you get into a flow and you can free write and get into the creative part, you love it. And that's what the kids taught me, because they went from being terrified to speak up because they were so intimidated to speak. It was their second language. You can imagine, they're fifth graders. So to write in English was so intimidating. But once we made games out of it and they would write about, we'd have them go interview a tree, go pick out a tree and ask them these questions. What are you thinking about? What do you see from here? And of course, all these ideas came and they stimulated their creativity. The coolest thing I found was when it came time to share, and they never were forced to share. The same kids that were terrified before would be the ones raising their hand saying, please let me share. And then when they would share their writing with the rest of the group, the pride they felt and the way the teachers looked at them and said, wow, what you wrote. And so the rest of the week, we'd have them writing poetry. And they had their naturalist journals that they would draw. They would draw the birds they found. They would do scientific experiments. So they had all these notes. But in all that was their poetry and their creative writing. And by the end of the week, they loved it. And that journal was their prized possession that they would go home and show mom and dad and their whole families, which would blown away by what their child did. And then it was a memory 5, 10, 20 years from now. So that was what told me we can do this. If a fifth grader can get over their intimidation of writing in another language, then we can all do it, because we're all intimidated to start. And so that really was my passion, to just bring it to everybody and connect with yourself and with nature through the writing. And it all was just perfect. It was like, it just gave me the easy answer. I didn't have to do anything. I just had to give them the prompt to get started, and everything else was them.
And you did this for 22 years. You were participating in this project.
Yes.
Amazing. 3
Yeah.
kids in Argentina. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
In rural Argentina, in Cordoba, the rural central Argentina. My sons, are born there, grew up there, and the school's still running. They're back down there. My sons are down there teaching at the same school. So it's
Really?
it's a beautiful project. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Wow. What a family experience. Okay. So,
Yeah.
what motivated you to then move back to the United States in 2014?
Yeah. So that was something. I could have stayed in Argentina forever. I was very happy there. And yet a lot of things were happening that sort of like pushed me. When you get your your orders. That's the way I see it. You kind of sense it and it's coming. So a lot of things happened at once. One, I was having a lot of health problems that sort of changed the way I did things. As you know, I had a cancer scare and a lot of big things. So it was, I got to like rearrange a few things. So that was part of it. The other thing were a series of wildfires. Like our place, we have 100 acres of native woodland and it's a preserve. And that's where we did all our and do the classes. Well, it burned once and then it burned again. And the second time it burned, which was years later, but the second time it burned our entire school down. And at that point, my sons were 13 and they were needing a little more education than rural Argentina could give them. And it just seemed like a good time. I think we need to go to the States to finish your high school. And so that is what kind of brought us back. And then I was just looking for a place that was good for them, where they could keep their Spanish and be close to flights back to Argentina, because that it was going to be a temporary thing for them, I thought, in the US. And so we decided, okay, Florida. It just sort of happened that way. And here I am, and the way things happen.
Amazing. What an adventure. It's so funny. I think for many of us, we talk about our stories and people say this to me all the time. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you've done so many like amazing different things." And I'm like, this seems kind of normal, And my guess is that's probably for you too. You're like, "Yeah, I just spent 22 years in Argentina. Yeah, normal." It's just, but for me,
Yeah.
I'm like, "Wow, what an adventurous life you've lived."
Well, it's exciting, and and for me to hear about you too, it is, and it is an adventurous life, and I love that that is our normal too, because that's what makes life exciting and taking those adventures.
hmm Okay, so I want to now hear all about your passion for writing. You've been talking about, obviously, the kids that, writing in their second language, which is just amazing. But why are you so passionate about helping people share their message through writing versus some other medium that they could choose? Why is that so important to you?
Yeah, and a part of that goes back to that it's always been with me as a writer myself. I've just always had the passion, and then everything I learned that helped, I wanted to share. And then working with those fifth graders really changed me. And their teachers often were the ones that would say, "Oh, I couldn't do that. I'm not creative," when they were talking about themselves. So I realized it wasn't just children. In fact, children are much closer to their creativity. They're faster to play around and not get too upset. So it was actually to get easier to get kids to write and do creative writing than their teachers. So that's when I realized, wow, we all have this and we all have a block. And yet, expressing ourselves authentically, honestly, is the most important thing so we can find out what we think. Because that was the only way I could even find out what was really underneath my first thoughts. What am I really thinking about this? I would have to write it out like a lot of people do. We have to journal to figure it out. Okay, that's what I want to say. Or we have to talk a lot like I do. I'll talk and be like, that's what I wanted to say. So the expression, the flow of our honest truth is so quick with writing, and yet we block ourselves so quickly as well. And that's why over the years I've worked with very tiny kids, pre-literate, all the way up to Ivy League professors. So you would say that's the full gamut of, skill level of writing, let's say. And yet all of them are insecure. So again, there's a block. And so it's so easy to get over the block. And then once we're over the block and we're expressing ourselves honestly, that's when all the good stuff happens. And we tap into, as you mentioned earlier, like the consciousness and the mystical and the sacred. And so that's when I realized it was really everything. And it was the way to get to that sacred connection that I think everybody is wanting.
Okay, I want to tease out a few things that you're saying there because you're talking about there are blocks that we have. I assume those are stories or beliefs something that we're saying to ourselves, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, what would you say are the most common stories or beliefs that are holding people back from expressing themselves through writing?
I can't say that. I can't write that. What would they think? It's not even true. I don't even remember exactly. But the what would they say? And I'm not a good writer. I'm not making it sound right are the big ones. And the secret is even your best published writers, the ones that we all admire and study, even those writers have the same feeling about their writing. So that's just universal, the feeling of the doubt. But that is what holds up most people. And it's very, very common. And one thing I like to remind people is that nobody was born writing. We were born artists. Give a child a crayon and they're going to know what to do. They'll find a wall to start, or painting on. But writing was a very long, arduous journey for all of us. And so we've literally had to train our brains to do it. And we're amazing at it, but we still have this hang up about it because we think we're supposed to be better at it. And like I said, the secret is nobody's better at it. What everybody feels that resistance is what can hold us up.
Mhm. What is the downside if I give in to that resistance? If I keep believing these lies, what's the downside?
It's really bad because you're not going to express yourself and you're going to stifle yourself, not just from writing. So, okay, you won't write that book but you're going to stifle the communication with yourself, which is what happens because when we're not writing honestly, we're not communicating honestly. We're not communicating honestly with ourselves and we're not communicating honestly with other people, like really giving them our truth, which is what we want in the world is like our full present conscious truth being expressed. That's going to be the most valuable side or part of ourselves. So stifling that stifles everything. So just writing honestly with yourself is enough. Nobody has to read it. But if you have a block that you can't write it on the page, then you know you are stifling yourself because you can write something out and then burn it. Nobody will ever see it. But the act of writing it out so you see it is huge. So that's why you want to write no matter what. And everything will, like your entire being will expand, like your aura basically expands because you're coming into yourself because you're saying your word. The Bible starts with the word. The
Mhm.
word manifests. We manifest with what the words we choose. So that's a huge power that we would just not be using if we're not intentionally working with our words.
Nicole, what you are proposing is revolutionary. I mean, you are basically saying to me today, anyone who is not writing on a regular basis does not know what they truly believe, is not like clarifying what they believe or know, and is preventing the expansion of, I don't know what word to use there, expansion of something. You're basically going, you're you're not clear on what you believe and you're not able to then clearly communicate that to other people. Am I right?
100%. Yeah, I love that you said it like that because I've never heard it like that exactly. And yet I say yes, it's very true. This is how we share the best part of ourselves and how we find it first. And the cool thing is for everybody that says, but I don't like writing. Tech today. So you don't even have to pick up a pen. There's talk to text. There's so many different ways that you can get the words that are in here and the thoughts, the stories, the dreams, the visions, the pieces that are within to get them out. And then you see what you have because it's not scattered. It's not just random things on repeat. In fact, it's a beautiful story of who you are, how you got here, your wisdom. and all the gifts that you have to share now with the world.
Hmm. On the other hand, there are a lot of people, especially people that are listening to our show that are spiritual leaders, healers, coaches that know I've got a message. I got this message or I've got a story and I want to get it out, but I got all these lies, right? All the things that you were talking about, all the blocks. You started something called Authors Collaborative with your partner, Darlene Turiff, to help individuals to share their story. So maybe just tell us, what is the vision of Authors Collaborative? How did you meet Darlene? How did this all come about?
Yeah, sure. The Authors Collaborative is a group where we write and self publish together. So it's a community that does all of that. And Darlene and I run that. And she's been my partner in this for almost 10 years now that we've been working together. But we started our first collaborative from another coaching community. And she was the business coach. I was the creative. I was helping all the coaches write their copywriting, do their content. And so it was all ads and websites and things like that. And at one point, we were both writing our books. Darlene was working on her book. I was working on my book. And I needed her help to focus because she's the time organizer and the business strategy. So I said, Darlene, help me out. And at the same time, she was saying, Nicole, I need your help to edit and finish up my book. And then we said, let's just get together and help everybody do this, because most people were coming to us that they wanted to write their books, go beyond the copywriting and the emails. They really wanted to share the message and the story. And so that's where we started the community to do everything from, I've got this idea. Does it have wings? Will this work as a book? All the way through the writing, editing, self-publishing, and launch, which is a huge journey. And that's where our mission is, to help them with that. And the other thing that we have discovered is that the transformation that the person does as they write their book, and as a coach or a therapist or a spiritual healer, it's just revolutionary. And then we realize, oh my gosh, this is the biggest spiritual journey of our lives. And the people we're working with, they're saying it's the biggest spiritual transformation of their life. So that it was like, wow, that's just makes it all the more beautiful. So we really focus on nurturing the author and developing that person, because everybody starts off with I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I need another class before I know how to write. I'm not a writer, all the things. And then we nurture that. And then the spiritual message comes out and it really takes over. And then you're away and running, you're flying.
I love that. I want to talk through the step-by-step process that you walk people through, but I'm curious about this whole world of self-publishing versus traditional publishing. And people that haven't dived into this might still think, self-publishing, that's just a vanity kind of thing. Like, there's no real credibility. People won't take me serious because it's not with a real publisher. I'm curious about your perspective or how you address that when people bring that up.
Absolutely, because it is the question. And it's still like a good thing to remember, we have options. And that's why I love the tech to say, wow, we can self publish. What a beautiful thing that we don't have to wait to find an agent or a publisher, which is a whole thing in itself. It doesn't happen quickly. And you may be years and years and years before you get a publisher, even a small one. And then to hit the big ones that you might be thinking about could be long shots, or it could take decades. So that is still an option, and it's a solid one. And yet self-publishing changed the rules completely. They changed the game, not the rules. They changed the game, because now we can publish tomorrow. We can throw anything up, and as long as it passes the check, that doesn't have anything that shouldn't be in there, it can get out there. And then we have issues with quality, like like you were saying, which is an issue, a real issue. And we do have a flooded market of published books now. However, I am a very big enthusiast of self-publishing. Like I say, it's like the best thing since the printing press. Like, because literally, like the printing press ended the dark ages. You know, if we can remember, it was literally printing books that ended the dark ages in Europe. And because it brought books, brought the message, learning out there. I see self-publishing exactly the same kind of revolution. It's getting us who have a story, we don't have to wait. We can get it out there and quickly. And then that's where Darlene and I come in to say, let's make sure the quality of your self-published book is exactly at the same level of our traditional publishers. And that's what we do differently as well, because the vanity you know, I call it like the navel gazing vanity piece that we know it's just a marketing, it's a glossy marketing piece for our business and little else. Everybody can see it a mile away. Just like, oh, I hit bestseller on Amazon doesn't hold it still holds the weight with people that don't know, but on the inner circle, we know it's not so hard to do those kind of things. So yes, and yet if you have the quality of the book, then you know you're going to have the effect on the reader. And this is where this is where the rubber meets the road. What do your readers think? Not your mom or your partner and all the people that are going to say it's great. Beyond all the people you know are going to buy it anyway, what do they say? And that's why we make sure that our authors are writing a book that's going to connect emotionally and inspire the reader to make a positive change in their life. So it's going to be a life-changing book, and it's going to be a good read. It's going to be entertaining. So there's a lot that goes into making sure that it's got the quality of the traditional publisher. Also the cover art, there's a lot I could talk about there and all the little details. But the truth is self-publishing is just as good quality wise if you put yourself at that standard. And the future, we've already seen the future. And this is the interesting thing. Traditional publishers are already switching. And if you notice, a lot of them have gone into consulting and becoming book coaches themselves because self-publishing isn't going anywhere. In fact, traditional publishers are going to have a harder time, and they're starting to cater to us, the self-publishers. So if you're interested in writing, self-publishing is going nowhere, and you can just do it amazing. And you're going to have a book that looks as good inside and out. So the cover and inside, the quality of the writing will be as good as anything a self-publisher will get you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's why you can see how I'm very passionate about it, because I'm just like,
yeah,
write your book, self-publish it, because you can be done in a year, beginning to end, from beginning idea to published, beautiful 5-star reviews where your readers are saying, this book changed my life. Like that's where we see it in what people are saying about the book once they get it in their hands.
Wonderful, wonderful. I agree wholeheartedly. Yes. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have published, I think, a dozen books myself, and the process, you can figure it out. There is so much value, of course, in an editor and that cover design. I will say I have published books with, designing the covers myself versus paying someone, even, upwards of $1,500 to $2,000 to have that cover design. And for me, it's well worth it because it really stands out. That cover is so important in standing out from, other books that are out there that are being self-published, and, potentially the cover's been made on Canva, and, you can kind of tell it's just a little bit different quality. But when people come to me and say, oh, I want to do a book and, I'm looking for a publisher, I'm like, I hate to squash people's dreams, but at that point I'm like, good luck. Like, have fun waiting 2, 3, 5, 10 years, whatever. Your book could be out in months and be making a difference. The point is to get that into the hands of people who will be inspired, motivated, encouraged, educated, whatever it might be. So I want to hear kind of the step-by-step process that you take people through if they come to you wanting to self-publish their book? I know you guys do ghostwriting, which is writing books for people. I've ghostwritten a couple books myself. Um, let's set that aside because the average person is probably not going to hire you to do that. They're more likely to be interested in that self-publishing route. I come to you. I say, Nicole, I want to write a book. I've got some ideas. How could you help me through the entire process?
So the fun thing, excuse me, is to take that energy, which at the beginning, which are the inspiration, and let the writer run on that. So it's like grabbing that and helping them get an outline, because you want to take all those downloads and sort of like, woo, all the inspiration that's happening and get it into an outline without stifling the creative download that's happening, and also giving them a solid framework. So Darlene and I have this process. We just talk it out, and while they're talking, we can get a mind map, a visual outline, an outline. So there's your roadmap. So then it's the next 3 months. We know where this whole book is going. We've already looked at who the ideal reader is. We know the promise of the book. So we have like the DNA of the book. And then the writer writes their messy first draft just off the cuff. And you know how fun that is when you're just writing from your soul and the words are just coming faster than your hands can move. You're like, wow, it's all happening. You feel the connections. That's where we want them to be. And we give them lessons. We meet throughout the week. We meet for trainings, and we do a lot of writing together. We have a couple of times a week where we get together just to write quietly and, body double and make sure that we get the 3 hours of writing in a week that everybody should be doing, and people could do it on their own. So they're getting the lessons, because there's secrets to go from, this is awful, it's so boring, my writing stinks, to, wow, that gave me goosebumps. Like, the magic is in some writing techniques. And so I share all that. And then the rest, like I said, is just writing that first draft. Then, as you so wisely said, the editing is a big part of that. And that is something you do not want to do on your own. Like, definitely you can do some of it on your own, but you need another pair of eyes. So that's where Darlene and I also offer, you will do it with you. You can hire somebody else, but hire an editor. So then there's the editing process, which generally takes longer than the writing. And so there's like drafts now. We've got like a third draft, a fourth draft. So we're just like playing around with order and then the flow. So all that sculpting is happening in the editing over a period of months. And it's a different energy. And people can love the writing and hate the editing. And then the nerves start again. And I can't do this. And so there's like the calming down. It's good. We're going with the flow. And then once we're through the editing, we go through 4 editing processes. So it's very intensive. And at the end of that, they know they've got a beautiful book. Like, that's when it settles and they go, wow, it's way better than they thought. And now they're proud to get it out there. So that's good, because the next stage is very intimidating of, okay, now I've got to upload it, which we walk you through that. It's not difficult. The tech to upload to KDP or Ingram Spark, there's many different platforms, but we like KDP. It's very simple, but there's stages to go through. It's a bit of tech, and then choosing your categories and all those things, which will definitely assure that you hit number 1. That's a little detail. And then the launch. The cover design is in there too, that you mentioned. Hire that out 100%. Do not design your own cover. Don't do it. As you just said, David, you do not want to design your own cover. Hire a professional, and it doesn't have to be a big investment, and you will get a beautiful, beautiful professional cover. Then it's launch time. And that's very intimidating for a lot of people. So we have a whole pre-launch strategy that we help and set up and then launch. And then we talk about your book's first year. I know it's like it goes on and on. You think it's over, but what to expect your first year, that was the book for parents, is their first year. It's like that. There's a whole first year of your book where you're promoting and talking about it. And that's intimidating. People are like, well, I don't want to go out and talk about it. but that's what we're required to do. And it's actually a lot of fun once we get over the nerves. So it's helping them without and getting the word out that like you know so much about.
Wonderful. And you guys are able to help people, what I hear you saying, from concept all the way to not just the launch, but even after the launch, helping them, coaching them through the process.
Yeah. And then what happens? Yeah, absolutely. That's why I say it's like A to Z. And then what happens is, as you know, once you write your first book, you're like, the second book. And then there's the third book. Like, that's the cool thing that shows we have all this within, because the more we write, the more we have to write. It never dries up. It never goes away. The source is there. It's infinite. And we just have more and more ideas and we become better writers. So it gets more fun and we're not nervous. Like, okay, the first book is done. Let's go on to the next one. So our writers tend to stay in our group. And so they're working on their second book or third book. And so we just, keep going. I think we're just going to grow old together and write as many books as we can.
I love that. And if somebody does say, okay, I've got a message that I want to get out, I mean, I appreciate you believing in me, Nicole, but I just do not want to write. You guys have the ability to help them get that message out just through their verbal communication. Is that right?
Absolutely. Because it would be conversations and then we come up with questions. It's another really interesting and fun way to write is having questions and then they just answer the questions. And we take out the questions and then all the answers, the content for the book, tidy it up. Obviously, you've got to edit it, but there you go. So it's a question and answer, listening to stories. It's a really fun process. Here's a little secret. Most of the people that hire us to ghostwrite end up writing the book themselves because it's like training wheels where we say, no problem. But then once they get into it and they see, oh yeah, they can finish it on their own and then they write the book. It just depends on what they want. But the process is really very similar to what they would be doing otherwise. And it's getting them in that flow because everybody can talk about it. As long as we can talk about it, then we can write about it. And the trick is to write the way we talk. Just write what you were going to say.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of, after like a couple of weeks of doing that, people realize, wait a minute, this isn't that hard, and then it goes from there.
I'm curious about how the investment works. I'm not looking for specific pricing, but just is it a one-time investment for you to help per book, or is it also a membership to participate in the collaborative? How does that work for you guys?
So we have all the options because everybody has different not commitment levels, but intimidation levels. Like there's so much intimidation when it comes to writing a book. So it's like, where do you feel comfortable? And they literally everything yes, we have a membership. So it's month to month and very inexpensive. So you can just come in and get the full benefits because we share, all our lessons and we're doing, weekly trainings, but you also have access to a lot of content behind the scenes. So even a month in the writing circles and the workshopping that we're doing would be a lot. So you can just try out the membership. Then we have, okay, do you want the editing services? Because we're going to teach you how to edit or how to hire an editor and what questions to ask and those sort of things. Or do you want us to do it? Or do you want to do it together? So those are already 3 different levels of, you do it, we'll do it together, or we'll do it and you don't even worry about it. And so we have just everything. We have VIP offers where, we'll do absolutely everything from A to Z. We have, let's do a jam session for a day and we'll work on whatever you want. Or do you want to come in and use the community at a very low, investment and just take it month to month? And so it's everything that they would want at the dose that they would want it in the investment level.
Wonderful. You also provide copywriting services for people who are needed more like marketing support, ads, landing pages, scripts. Is that correct? And if so, how does that work?
So yes, absolutely. There's all of that going on because writing a book and then launching your book is a business. That's something you have to tend to, and it tends to support whatever our business is or our project, right? These are very interconnected. So the marketing content is everywhere needed. So there's emails, even, could be press releases or video scripts, social media posts, text messages to people. You know how it's just everywhere, and all that is marketing content. So yes, we actually have within the membership, we have a special call every week that just focuses on the marketing language and the business. And we only say get in there once you're ready for it, because it's just too much when you're writing your book perhaps. But yes, we do have all those services as well to focus on the classic copywriting. But one thing is that it's all connected, and the way we write in our book is really the way we're writing in our marketing content. Like, as you know, you're so good at being such an authentic, heartfelt speaker and communicator that you're not selling somebody something and marketing writing that's off from what you're actually doing. This is you offering your services. You're there to help. And so it's the same kind of language, and we bring that energy and spirit to your writing, so you really connect with your ideal client and your audience, so they're inspired to work with you and get the benefits.
Hmm. Okay, so we have this little thing in our world now called artificial intelligence, and people are pumping out books that are, I mean, there's tons of books that are written just by AI, and obviously a lot of marketing copy that's written by AI. How do you address that with your clients that you work with? What are your thoughts on this?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because AI is such a topic. Like, I would go on for 5 hours on AI. Obviously, it's a huge thing right now. And AI is a really good tool, like a pen, where, okay, yeah, it's going to do some things for us. So to brainstorm or get an outline, and certainly to help us editing when we write something, be like, this was long and wordy. Give me a more succinct way of saying that. Those are good ways to use AI. However, like any tool, there is a danger. And with AI, the danger is huge. And I talk about this in my book. Actually, I've dedicated a chapter to this, because the atrophy that happens when we depend on AI to create for us, because we're the original creators. The content comes from us and our connection with spirit and our consciousness. The original words come from us. The AI helps us shape it or edit it, or maybe brainstorm a few things. It can do a lot of amazing things. But then we're going to come back and we're going to edit what the AI gave us. So that's why I say everything that we're giving to AI to do, we have to know how to do. We have to know how to outline. We're still working on all those things. We don't stop doing that. We're using a tool that can do it much faster and give us something that either we weren't going to get, or it was going to take us, it could take us weeks to get what AI does in a second, right? And yet, if we now depend on the AI for the original content, which is what we're seeing, whereas people are taking, like, they're copying what Chat GPT gave them and publishing it as their book. And we see it all the time. Like, we see it as social media posts, emails. Like, I can still tell it a mile away. Probably in a few months, I won't be able to, because it's advancing so quickly. So it's really important that we use it as a tool, but we also understand, and the studies are out. MIT just released their research. I don't know if you saw that, the AI tools atrophies the brain. They've done the brain research to see, and we're not firing our brain. In fact, it's starting to go to sleep, and it's students using AI to write their essays are underperforming linguistically and emotionally, and they can't even recall what they were writing about. So that just shows us that there's a huge danger there.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to keep the organic. That's why I say it's organic intelligence that this is all about. We're the creator and the AI is the tool. Great. Help us out. But always come back to yourself. Don't let that connection and you being able to free write and brainstorm and put pen to paper or type it or talk to text it. It doesn't matter. You don't ever have to pick up a pen. If you don't like to write, you can talk it. You could sing it. But we want your connection first and last. You're going to be the first, you throw it to AI, and then you're going to take it back and you're going to finish it. So it's all you.
Wonderful. You mentioned that you have a new book coming out fall 2025 called Creative Magic, Becoming a Conscious Creator Through Art, Writing, and the Imagination. Tell us about this book, who's it for, and how would it benefit them?
Yes. So this is my passion project that has really come from just years. And I have a couple of other books out. And this is sort of the third in a series because I have copywriting magic, nonfiction magic, and now it's creative magic. This is my piece, though. This is my passion piece. And it really came from all this learning over the years and everything I wanted to share about creativity, because it's not just the writing, it's the visual art. And when I was diagnosed with cancer and the wildfires came and all this was happening, it happened at a time when I was in an art class. It was a collage class, as it so happened. And so I just started to express everything I was going through the collage. And then I realized, wow, this was huge. And it was the same time I saw the movie The Secret. And there's Dr. Joe Vitale talking about making a list and sort of just sending off your order to the universe, state it, write it down. And there's Marie Diamond talking about a client who would paint, and then what the client painted would actually come true in their life. And Marie Diamond was walking around the house. She told this story of seeing her client's art and saying, I can see why you have a problem in romance. And that's when the light bulb went on for me. It was my eureka moment of what Joe was saying about writing it, and Marie was saying about the visual, and that became my process. So I was just journaling words and then creative collages of what I wanted. And that is also how I got to the US. Like the way the road opened was thanks to them. And you combining Marie and Joe, and that's what my book is about, is how the visual and the written and song, however we want to express ourselves, is not only so healthy for us, and it's a gift to the world because art makes the world more beautiful. It is the manifestation secret. Like if we can express it visually, it'll happen in the real world. And we just keep feeding ourselves with the art we're looking at. If we're intentional about our art and our words, there's nothing we can't create. And so that became my mission. And that's what this book is about, is getting the reader to get inspired. And then I share the couple of activities that I used that are very simple. And I share a lot of ways and go into a lot of ways to do it. But it's really just getting them to start that process, because once you start, you're hooked and you're away and running, and you'll see how powerful it is in your life, because you're going to change everything. It literally will change everything in a very beautiful way.
Wonderful. Well, of course, we'll link to your books, including the new book, Creative Magic. You also have a podcast called Published, the Podcast. And what can people expect when they listen?
So that's a good place to come and listen. You learn you're not crazy to want to write a book. It's the conversations with published authors and what that journey was like. And then everybody feels, oh yeah, that's the way it is for me too, to get the inspiration. Here's some secrets, the whole process, whether we're talking about the writing or the editing or the launching, listening to other published authors' stories about that process is a lot of fun, and it's inspirational to see that, oh yeah, I can do it too. And again, just get people writing and doing it, because the rewards are there waiting for you.
Wonderful. What's the best place for people to connect with you and find all of your resources and social media and so forth?
So coming to check out the Authors Collaborative is the best way, and that's at Get Content Confident. That's our big place with the copywriting. We do all this stuff. If you go to getcontentconfident.com/pocketbook magic. So we brought back the pocketbook. I don't know if many of the listeners are old enough to remember back in the day in the 70s, the little pocketbooks were what we like all read, like the original Wizard of Oz that I read were these little pocketbooks. So Darlene and I had this idea. We're going to bring the pocketbook back. We want a short, punchy book, a book that readers read the whole way through. And so that's where we came up with Pocketbook Magic. So getcontentconfident.com/pocketbook magic.
Awesome. I used to think when I first started writing, I need to have the thickest book possible because that's going to show how like awesome I am as an author. And then my last two books, I'm like, yeah, but people want to actually finish the book and they may not even pick it up if it's too big. So smaller is actually better.
You said it exactly. Most people don't read past the third chapter of most of those amazing books. Like people talk about these books. Oh yeah, that's amazing, amazing. Did you get past chapter 3? Most people don't because they're too long, just like you said. So let's make them shorter. We want them to read the whole thing and be ready for the next.
Wonderful. Nicole, thank you so much for sharing your story. What an adventurous life you've had so far. And thank you for sharing your wisdom. It's great to be with you.
Thank you so much, David. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Awaken Magazine podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and our other conversations, would you mind taking a moment to leave a 5-star review and maybe even a comment on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? That's one of the ways that you can give back to the show and help us reach more people. And of course, feel free to share the episode with a friend. And if you're not already on our email list, we send out an inspiring email every Monday morning full of articles and interviews. Just head on over to awakenedmagazine.com and click subscribe and join for free. Our hope is that all the resources we share will help our world continue awakening to love.